Sorry, I apologize. Did I interrupt?
Nope, we're still waiting on.
We weren't giving you the evil eye.
I thought I saw it.
We're good? Okay. Call the Thursday, May 13th, 2021 Vernon Township Board of Education work session to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Annunziata,
Here.
Mr. Semaglia,
Here.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Here.
Mrs. Luthner,
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell,
You here?
Ms. Pellet,
Here.
Mr. Sweeney,
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please have a reading of the meeting notice?
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law.
Thank you. It's recommended that the board enter closed session for purposes of discussing personnel and student matters. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second. Second by Mr. Semaglia. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in close. Thank you. It's recommended that the board return to to public session. Can I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second. Second by Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in open session. Item 2D, which is public participation limited to items on the work session agenda and any student comments. Just want to begin with, did we receive any email comments, Ms. Linsky? Ms. Linsky?
Any email? Not that I know of.
No, okay. All right, so we'll begin with those who are here in the public. If you'd like to comment, please come up to the podium. You have 5 minutes. State your name, place of town. Seeing none, we will go over to the Zoom chat room. If anybody would like to comment, please raise your hand and you'll be admitted as a panelist. You'll have 5 minutes. Please state your name, place of town, and the floor will be yours. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I would like to make a comment in regards to the Vernon Township Board of Education organizational chart. I would like you to review the chart with the following thing in mind. This chart is completely and 100% a vertical chart, vertical in organization. A vertical organization is not only time-wise outdated, it has been proven to have a negative impact, and I can go into history for that, on employee satisfaction and ownership. The preferred model nowadays, actually since the early 1920s and 1930s, I can't call this nowadays, is a horizontal chart or a combined chart between horizontal and vertical, like a team system chart. I don't want to get too much in those details either. That helps give everybody ownership and makes employee morale much better. Currently, Vernon is suffering under poor employee morale, as is evident by the frequent appearances of Vicky Smith, the union representative. I've been at board meetings for 25 years, and for 25 years, for most of the time, 99% of the time, the union rep was present but has not spoken. The union rep only has spoken in times of crisis. Furthermore, we're in the middle of what seems to be a mass exodus, which is also the resignations in this town over the past few months have been unprecedented, even in time when Mr. Di Benedetto caused a mini mass exodus compared to this. So I would urge the board to take action to revisit how it is organized. I would like the Board of Education to remember it is here for the education. In the chart, it is the general, the superintendent and assistant superintendent are like the colonel and major, and the teachers are not even appearing in the chart. So it is completely vertical. This is not an army, in my opinion. And even no matter how nice and thoughtful you are, it is still the organization that counts. And so therefore, if you want me to go into a longer tribe, I can do that, and I can give you more details, like, for example, how Ford had a vertical organization and he lost half of his market share because General Motors went to a horizontal organization. And vertical organizations still work very well for organizations that are smaller than 20 people. And I would like to put forth that the Vernon Township School District is bigger in employees and members who work there here than 20 people. And with that, this organizational chart, in my opinion, should be torn up, discarded, and replaced with something that is more current. If you are interested, I don't have the time to cite it either, but you can Google horizontal organization in educational facilities, and or in schools, and you will find plenty of current data and scientific studies that will show that it has a definite impact on teacher satisfaction. Teacher satisfaction is the second most important item in the prediction of student success, and we are failing in that. The first most predictive item is parent involvement, and they are nowhere visible on this chart either. So we are failing in number 1 and number 2. And I don't like that. I would like to remind you, you are a board of education, and its goal is in its name, is education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perringer. Mr. Shea, do we have any other panelists raising their hands or attendees? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close it to the public at this time. Item E is a review of the public meeting agenda. Are there any questions from the board about next week's agenda? Since we're talking about, or not talking about rather, the meeting agenda for next week, I wanted to take this chance to bring up, we have a lot of new members. We'd be considered like a new team between the administration and the newer members, even though some of us have been here for a few years. Our process for agenda setting, it's something that came up in a meeting between Ms. Mitchell and the administration and myself, and the process for getting items on the agenda, because board members may want, they may want an update on something, they may want a presentation on a topic. So how do we set the agenda in a way that is fair to the whole board? So that way, not just one board member is directing the administration to prepare an entire presentation. The board leadership isn't deciding what we're doing for the entire board. So we're doing this in a way that's fair to all of us, so we can all have input. So we were talking about two ways that we thought were the most equitable way to get items onto the agenda. So those two ways that I'd like to propose are that if a board member would like to have an item placed onto the agenda, that they bring that item up during open board member forum. This way we can get the rest of the board to weigh in, and we can see that there's consensus amongst the whole board that we're going to direct the administration to devote time and energy into doing that. The other way is if a committee decides that they want to request an item on the agenda. So a majority of the members of a committee would like to see something on the agenda. They reach out, the chairperson of that committee reaches out to Kelly or myself, and then we will ask the administration to put that on the agenda. Does anybody have any ideas or thoughts on that?
So during open board forum, somebody has something they want put on the agenda. It comes up for discussion, and then we decide if it goes on the agenda or it goes on the agenda because somebody had suggested it.
It would be discussion. So, so the board would talk about it.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
I think that seems fair. So that the only problem with that is that means if we didn't do it then, we can't do it as something arises, in between, right?
You mean between meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would wait till the next meeting to request it, or a committee could request it.
Okay.
What do we think?
That's different than what I've learned at trainings. But if that's what this board wants to do, that's upon being a certified board leader, I was trained differently. But if that's what the board wants to do.
What were you trained?
We were trained that whether your board has 5, 7, or 9 members, you are all equal. The board leadership doesn't have any more power than anyone else. No one should know anything that no one else doesn't know. It should be shared with all equally. And any board member who would like an item on the agenda makes the request. Now, granted, that doesn't mean go do a whole presentation, this or that, but if there's anything, because we're all equal, we are the Board of Education. The Board of Education gives guidance to the administration. And if a board member wants something on an agenda, then you just simply ask. We went through a whole thing, how do you get items on the agenda? So, I mean, that's fine. I'm just stating I would be remiss not to mention what I learned at trainings. But if this board would like to wait, because then I don't know who just mentioned it, but then you have to wait a whole month. But I mean, that I'm looking at it, then that may possibly create an imbalance, and we are 9 equal members. So anyone has anything they'd like on the agenda, you just simply ask. Now, it may not fit. Let's say you have something you want covered, and the president may say, you know, that's really a great item, but our June is packed. Can that wait until July? Like the timing, you know, you can work with, but I just wanted to throw that out, so.
I think it came up with because of the tasks that the administration has to do. So say I decide, okay, I want this on the agenda because this is important to me. But then I say, well, I want a slideshow of this, this, and this. It sends the administration sideways trying to get all that together. So I think that they felt that it was very fragmented as like, oh, this member wants this one member wants that. So we're trying to make it more organized where we ask in an organized fashion, they get to hear it, and then they understand why we're asking for it, instead of just having a lot of one-offs. I think that's where it came about.
It came up because, you know, we as a board ask for a lot of information, rightfully so we can make decisions. But we don't want us as a single board member and board leadership or any other board member to be saying, I want an update on how we're spending COVID grant funds. As one board member, I want an update on that, right, at the board meeting. So now I as one board member am basically directing the business administrator to go prepare an entire presentation for the board, directing district resources, the time and energy of that administrator to prepare that presentation for the board. As opposed,
I'm just mentioning items, an item that you want. I'm not saying go present.
Well, those are what the
I agree
agenda items are.
presentations could go through committee, even though we're a board of a whole, not a board of committee. That's fine. But any item, you know, that someone would like discussed, we're all equal.
I think that most of the items that would be requested to put on the agenda would be items that were put on there for discussion. And then I think the presentation and things like that you're talking about that might be requested come out of that discussion. I think that by doing it in board member forum, I think we do it at the end of the night, everybody's kind of tired, and then we get into this long discussion, which is what will happen about what the person brings up without anybody having any time to think about it at all. I think we should be able to put discussion items on the agenda pretty much at any point in time, maybe via email to
I agree with
whoever
you on that.
manages the agenda or what have you.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's going to be requesting presentations and things like that.
well, they have been requested many times in the past by various board members.
But I think discussion related items on the agenda should be able to be put on there pretty much at any point in time because we're just discussing them and nobody has to do any, back work on that for that night, just be ready to discuss it.
Well, can we agree on that then, that we can put things on the agenda to discuss, but we're not going to assign some big task to?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess discussion items
I
is
think
what
that's
was
fair.
going
I think we
Okay.
were just trying
Yeah.
to curb the presentation piece of it.
Yeah, we don't want, what ends up happening is that on Friday morning, Kelly and I sit down and we say, all right, I'm just going to use it. Martin is asking for this, and then this person wanted to see this. And like, we try to make sure that all of those items make it onto the next agenda. And we try to remind the administration of what was brought up the night before. So that way there's follow through. But, we want to make sure that if we're telling them to spend their time on something and to spend, resources of the district preparing packets, preparing information, not just discussion items, that it's something that a majority of the board wants them to do.
Right, and that would come out of the discussion. So if somebody wanted to discuss COVID-related expenses, they would say, I'd like to put a discussion for COVID-related expenses on there. And then as a whole, we say, hey, you know what? Okay, this is good. We got some answers, but we really need this.
Yeah, can't the administration give us a presentation about this? No, I mean, all kidding aside, I agree with Teresa and Martin, definitely.
And then also to build on what Joe and Martin just said, if we can bring a discussion item up as an individual, that's fine. In the discussion, we'll get a sense, where's the interest? Either it's there or it's not. Or if it needs to go into some sort of presentation or something bigger, then it can always be assigned to a committee, which can then tackle it over a few months or whatever the case is. So it's spread out to help the administration with their time and energy, which is very understandable. And then the committee can then share it with the full board or eventually can, come to it. Whatever it is. I can't speak for any other committees, but in my own, if an administrator says, I'd like to do a presentation or it'd just be easier to show this, I feel free, I'm happy. And then when they put the time aside to do a really good presentation, I'll ask, do you plan on showing this in the public, or this is great, would you mind in a few months sharing it? I mean, no pressure, they can say yes or no. But that's, how I handle presentations. But single discussion items, I agree with, any of us should be able to ask.
Okay.
I think that that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that if it's going to be a discussion item, that any board member then can request it at any time. But if we are going to be asking the administration to spend time and energy on preparing something for the board, presentations, packets, things like that, that we as a collective have to agree. We have to have at least 5 board members who want to give that directive. Does that seem like a fair process?
Yeah.
Okay.
So may I ask for clarification?
Sure.
Just to be sure. So if there's a discussion item from any individual board member, anyone can request at any time, and it becomes a discussion item on the agenda, correct?
Yeah, and subject to timing. So
Okay.
it may not go in the next meeting, it may
Right,
go the one
right.
after.
And then if it's something that needs further exploration, like a presentation or something with more depth or detailed reports, data, et cetera, that might be a presentation, but I guess we would discuss that at open board member forum and come to consensus to place that on. Did I understand? I just want to make sure I understood it correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah, and
Yes.
then the administration would have a month to do it because it wouldn't be until
Or a
the
week.
next
Right.
meeting. So
During the board member forum, you'll have your chance to weigh in too, Karen, Chuck, Teresa.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you might answer the questions before any of that even comes, to fruition. You might not need a presentation because you guys might have the answer and then we're all good.
Okay.
Or if it's something that a committee can handle, something committee specific that might fall under a committee goal, then that's perfectly acceptable to bring it into a committee and ask that chairperson. And again, all of you, I went to other chair people of committees I'm not even on. I just did it a few months ago and said, please add this to your agenda and report back to me.
Yeah. I
Because
think that
again,
puts
we,
us in a very
all 9 of
proactive
us
light.
have that right. Excuse me?
Puts us in a very proactive light at that point because we're doing proactive things, instead of such cookie cutter stuff.
Good.
Any other questions about the agenda for next week or in general? Okay. Item F, correspondence.
Please review the correspondence 1 through 11 that were submitted.
Okay, item G.
Can I ask a question about those? I noticed there's two robotics club
Yes.
advisors leaving.
Yes. I met with them when I found out that they were retiring, resigning. I met with Mr. Parringer, who you just heard, the 2 coaches and another coach to talk about the future of the program and who they thought would be a good person and exploring all those issues with some high school folks.
Okay, so we're still going to have a robot. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm, yeah.
Okay.
This is just Tuesday.
Okay, item G. Ms. Davino.
Yes. I believe this was a request of a board member, but I don't recall. But that's okay because now we have a process, so thank you very much. Does Mr. Shea have this presentation,
Yes, he
Dr.
does.
McKay?
Mhm.
So Mr. Shea is going to pull up a spring forward update. This is really kind of an encapsulation of what's happened since April 12th up until this point. Remember, April 12th was when the Vernon Township School District reopened for all intents and purposes to a full day 5-day week schedule combining blue and gold cohort. So Dr. McKay and I are going to quickly go through these slides, but to provide some information for the board and of course for the public.
Great. Matthew, what do we have for microphones? So there are folks at home who do preparation.
Oh, you have a mobile microphone for Chuck. That's a good idea. He doesn't stand still during presentations.
The ultimate power is the clicker. I can go forward or back.
Yes, you can. You can't because you're in charge.
Where's
Oh, they both have
where's the best
microphones.
place to stand? It doesn't matter, right?
No, we can split up. I'll
But the
go,
microphone is so people.
I'll go near the
can
screens.
Okay. All right, Dr. McKay, why don't you start?
All right, so our spring forward theme is the idea of course, we're playing on spring, but the idea of moving forward. And we're talking about the acceleration programs and everything else. And the language that we're using is to bring a positive tone to everything that our students are doing and our teachers are doing. So as you can see with these gerunds, learning, playing, helping, competing, winning, honoring our best, and volunteering our way to a return to normal. And I don't know what normal is. I've always had a problem with normal, so it doesn't really matter. But the point simply is that we want our students to feel that the end of this school year was something to grab hold of. The end of this school year was a sense that they had their lives back. Our teachers had their lives back, and we had some normalcy. So that's what the spring forward idea is.
Right. Oh, sorry. I didn't know where I have to point. Good. So you'll see at the top of every slide, the banner talks about the percentage of people that are back in person. So we started collecting data on April 12th when we had our initial classes come together of blue and gold. So as you can see at Cedar Mountain, we started at 77.1%. We're up a little at 78.4%. You'll notice in each of these slides that there is an increase in every school, some more than others. And a lot of those things have to do with the different grade levels, and Chuck and I will talk about that as we get into it. But here you can see Cedar Mountain. I wonder if you could guess what that picture is on the right. Any ideas?
100 day.
Sure. But just so as you can see, part of it is, we have student work in the hallways. These are the things that make children feel really proud about being in school, seeing that their work is there, collaborating with their friends and their teachers. Again, one of the things that Dr. McKay and I talked about was trying to normalize the school experience even during a pandemic, because we're really worried about what September looks like. So without some kind of normalization now through June, we don't know what to expect in September. So just a little shot.
Also, and this is for folks at home as well, this is a tribute to Vernon. So there's a tribute to the parents who are sending the students in or who have been caring for them at home all year long, the teachers who are back and working with the students, the administration, the buildings are alive. And what we want to say is that this is what we were hoping for. The April 12th date, and all that we started to do was we're inviting. It's an inviting place now. So look at Cedar Mountain, look at those numbers. 78.4% of our students are back in every day. Rolling Hills, 78.4% are back in. And I'm going to show you a picture in the next slide because, well, first of all, the picture on the right, I snuck in and took it. It's, and I'll say it's a music class, and they all have the shields and their masks on because they want to still play music. And then on the left side is just a picture that we took randomly from the parking lot, but the idea of the children having a socialized experience, a socialization outside, practicing distance, but also being cared for and caring for each other.
Fresh air.
Yep.
Masks on. Okay, let's take a look.
All right, so
learning to be
that's
social.
yeah.
Yes, that's Rolling Hills. That's what
it. There's your joke. Learning to be social and socially distanced. Doing both.
Right. So obviously on the right, the shields or the screens. A lot of people want to know, what do they look like? How big are they? How can the children maneuver with them? It is a challenge. Imagine being a child and being worried about a screen. These are the necessary PPE and the things that we've had to employ this year so that we could have a normalized experience. I think most children, even though they don't like having to wear the mask on the screen, would prefer the mask on the screen in school than being home. And as you can see on the left, we have our children out playing, but still maintaining their distance from each other. Lounsbury Hollow, as you can see, in April, 75.7%. They're up to 76.9. I don't know how much things will change between now and June. They might not. They might stay where they are. But on the left, temperature taking, those protocols are still in place. We haven't changed any of those things. And on the right, again, the screens. Dr. McKay, did you want to share about Lounsbury?
Sure. The wonderful thing about Lounsbury is it's alive. And I walked into the office the other day, and the secretaries were there, and they were all smiling. And I said, "What's up?" Because something's up. And they're like, "We're just so happy the kids are back because they have all these issues that they keep coming into the office with." And the idea simply is it's alive. It's not just us as older folks hanging out with each other, complaining about things or doing things or saying about the children are walking in, they have issues. I don't have my lunch. Oh, yeah. And the people, of course, in the office, including teachers who were standing there, including the administration, were saying, yes, they're back.
Yeah, it's vibrant, and that's what we hope is going to continue through the end of the school year. So Glen Meadow, so they were at 72.5% in April. They're at 76.5% now.
Yes.
That seems to be increasing almost on a daily basis. And we do still have children and families that are reluctant. And of course, the virtual option is still there, right? This is about comfort.
Yep.
It's about people needing to feel if they're ready to return to the building, and if not, that we're still, as you can see, they're on their Chromebooks. So
Yeah.
if there are children at home, they're able to still be a part of that class, even though there are children in school.
And that's exactly what was happening. On the left is a math class in which they were gamifying a lesson, but they had to be timed. So they had their timers on. They were screaming and yelling and excited with Miss Holdreth. And then on the right, of course, they were learning Shakespeare. And it breaks my heart, they weren't as excited as the game on the left. So that's heartbreaking, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
So gamification.
But again, the
Shakespeare.
class on the right was a wonderful, wonderful classroom in Glen Meadow. And again, look at the numbers. Middle school, 76.5% of the students are back. Okay.
So at the high school, we started at 57.7% in April. We're at 62.6% now. I do think that the high school, we probably will not see this number come up too much. If I were going to project in the next several weeks, there are so many things happening for high school seniors and juniors between the junior prom, the senior prom, and graduation. If I'm a high school senior and all I really want is the prom or graduation, I might decide to be virtual. And I'm not blaming students. It's a personal choice at this point in the school year. I don't necessarily anticipate our numbers coming up, juniors and seniors. In fact, when you break it down per grade level, the largest percentage increases were freshmen and sophomores coming back to school as opposed to juniors and seniors. Juniors and seniors, the seniors are ready to go, right? However, you see on the left, the National Honor Society induction ceremony that took place yesterday on the football field, which was lovely. I thought just did a tremendous job.
Incredible.
And on the right-hand side, Dr. McKay, is that engineering?
Sure, engineering, and the engineering guys were in a competition. And what we're trying to show with these pictures is the normalization process that's now happening. So tomorrow, the juniors are working on the prom. Yesterday was the National Honor Society. Right. These engineer guys were in an engineering competition, and we have another slide about that. And the idea simply is they're doing the things that we normally do in high school on a daily basis, and there's so much going on in the different areas.
We don't have pictures, but poetry out loud happened yesterday as well.
Amazing things.
We'll cover those.
Okay, so we wanted to show you some spaces just so we continue to talk about these. I think that some people, when they're driving by Glen Meadow, think that Glen Meadow is eating lunch all the time because they're out under the tents. That's not the case. They're having class outside. Right. So lots of classes are happening outside, and Rolling Hills has this beautiful, they call it their sensory garden, which is right off the library. Like if you're looking, the picture you're looking at looks at the library. You know how the U of Rolling Hills is? And they come right out of the library where it's all painted and it looks like a garden, and then they walk out into this garden. They're doing plantings, etc., and teachers are teaching science classes out there as well.
And remember, it's great outdoor space. Luckily, the rain, knock on wood, broke finally, so we had some nice weather this week.
Oh, it's going to be.
The children have really enjoyed being outside. In fact, I got a call from another school district a while ago, and they said, what are you doing as far as the plan for lunches go? And I said, well, we have tents, we have outdoor space. And I said, you have to understand, Vernon is different than down below, right? The person who called me was from like Bergen County. And I said, we have children who will eat outside even if it's 40 degrees out. And in other places, it's just not like that, right? We live life outdoors a little bit up here. It's kind of a different mentality. And that's a good thing. And our children in general really love to be out there. So
We have a picture of Glen Meadow kids that I showed in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it was when we had the snowstorm. So they're in boys, 7th grade, in shorts, outside, having lunch on snow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's like the uniform for our middle school boys. I love this one. So
Yeah.
on the left, that's Mr. Demsack and our CFM CTE program at the high school. And he and the gentleman in his program modified the screens to fit any desk. So Chuck, take that over. What else?
Sure. So look at the pride in the left, on the left side, because they're posing. It's wonderful. And what they did was they cut the screens to fit the classroom, because the screens that we ordered for some of the high school desks just didn't fit. And the smaller screens that would have fit on those desks were really for children. In other words, they weren't high enough. So Mr. Demsack went at it with a glue gun and his CFM group. He cut the screens to make sure that they fit. And of course, they were adjusted for each one of the classes. And he and the team did hundreds of them.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's what
hundreds of
facilities managers do. That's what our young men and women are learning to be, is facilities managers, and that's what they do, taking care of facilities. So kudos to that team and that program. On the right, what the screens look like, that shot is coming out of Lounsbury.
So again, a little more normalcy at the high school. This was yesterday's National Honor Society. Of course, the opportunity to once again congratulate all of our inductees.
Absolutely.
We don't typically hold a ceremony during the day. It was, the weather held out. It was really beautiful ceremony. And there was a point in the ceremony that was my favorite part. And we probably have a picture in here.
I do.
Yeah, so after the inductees and you light the candles, toward the end of the ceremony, our advisors asked the current Honor Society members to share some words of gratitude of people they would like to thank. And it was really beautiful. They talked about their parents. They talked about, sisters. It was really teachers. They named teachers. It was really
Looking up to an older brother and also talking about a sister who inspired them. I mean, it was very, very moving. I thought that Mr. Folkowski and Ms. Hill did a beautiful job setting this up, and the idea of doing it outside, brilliant. I hope that we continue to do it this way. I really thought it was something special. And this is the kids when they were lighting the candles, and of course for the 4 different pillars of the National Honor Society. They talked about each one, whether it was character, whether it was service, and of course academics, which you pointed out in your speech, Mr. Vino. It was wonderful that your speech. And of course on the right, they're talking about people that inspire them, and it was very, very moving.
This was the picture, right?
Yeah, I love this picture.
Yes.
Yeah. They had Earth Day at Rolling Hills. So we have a acting principal at Rolling Hills, and he comes in and goes, Earth Day, we're going on hikes. So out they went, hiking the trails back. There's trails behind Rolling Hills. And of course, that's the hill there between Rolling Hills and Lounsbury Hollow. What a wonderful shot.
And what I will say is that, to Mr. Demsack's credit as our acting principal, prior to the hike, he checked the trails. He made sure they were safe.
Yes.
He checked to make sure they weren't too muddy.
Right.
And he said, "Oh my goodness, Karen, it's Mr. Vino." He never calls me Karen. "Oh my goodness, Mr. Vino, it's going to be perfect. I can't wait to take the kids on a hike." So I thought it was a great way to celebrate Earth Day. Many classes got out and hiked with Mr. D, and it was kind of a big deal for them to hike with the principal as well. That's a big bonding experience for little ones. So,
well, think about your own childhood, going on a hike with the principal. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Something to talk about for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I went forward.
Speaking of trails, this came to us today, and of course, this is the Viking Success Academy. And Ms. Coesfeld and Mr. Bray are on the right-hand side there with trail markings that they just put in, and the trails are all around the high school. So they did all sorts of markings with the Vernon Success Academy. They were going to have a ribbon cutting contest, ceremony, but I think that's pushed till next week.
Yeah, but again, I mean, we talk about normalizing the learning experience. So it's not just academics and being on the Chromebook or in the classroom. It's also hiking. It's also marking trails. It's working collaboratively. It's being part of CFM to modernize or take care of those screens so that other students can learn. So part of what makes Vernon great are all of these individual programs and efforts by so many wonderful people. And speaking of wonderful efforts,
There you go.
the Spring Carnival
There
and the
you
Winter
go.
Carnival, right? But I don't know how many folks came for the Spring Carnival on April 30th and May 1st. Lots and lots of children, right, Miss Mitchell?
Yes.
That is Miss Mitchell giving prizes out. And of course, the prizes were given every hour and a half or so. And I was waiting, Miss Mitchell, for a child to come because sometimes the parents would come up to accept, right? So we got one of you giving it out, but kids were delighted and delightful.
And parents were
delightful children.
I was saying to Dr. McKay, I think my favorite thing was greeting children as they came in.
Sure.
I don't often get to be with the little ones, and as they were coming in, they had on their lovely Spring Carnival shirts, and I had one on, and I'd say, I have a matching shirt. And they were like, oh my goodness. And then they'd get a little ticket at the booth, and I'd say, do you know what that ticket's for? And they'd say no, and I'd say, you're going to get a prize. And they were like, yay. So just the opportunity, even for an adult and an educator to have the opportunity to connect with kids, it was fulfilling for me. And to be able to chat with parents who were so grateful that we opened the high school with such a wonderful event. It really was very well done. Lots of success. Kudos to Ms. Mitchell and the Student Life Committee. I've heard only positives from the Spring Carnival.
Yes. So while we're thanking, thanks to Ms. Coughlin and Ms. Brennan and all the work that they did, being there the whole time. Thanks to the union and Pride and all that they were doing when the students were coming in. Thanks to the parents who volunteered to help out. Thanks to the students. We have a picture coming up of the students who dressed up as famous characters for the small children. But of course, this is some of the action scenes from the carnival. That was the picture on the right, of course, was what was going on in the cafeteria. And really, it's sort of crazy, but we do have pictures of children designing their own masks. Now, if that's not a historical picture that we will be able to use 100 years from now, or show them as they get older, this is what your childhood was. But they were also doing spin art there as well. And of course, the human billiards in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
There we go. And that's what
Right
Dr.
there.
McKay was referring to. So on the left, we have some of our high school students come and dress up as characters. I see Elsa and Anna, Gaston and Belle, and Tinkerbell. And some of you may remember that picture there, the Viking Spring Carnival of the Viking helmet with the spring flowers on it was created by Melody Bucheri, who's an 8th grader who'll be at the high school next year. So we like to use student artwork. We used some student artwork for the Winter Carnival, so we used it again for the Spring Carnival. And I know the little ones really, really enjoyed seeing some characters. It's a very big deal for young ladies and gentlemen to see princes and princesses live and in person.
Right.
It went over very well.
Right.
And then what's on the right there, Dr.
Well,
McKay?
they were throwing hatchets. So, I mean, what better thing to do at school than throw a hatchet? So I thought, my goodness gracious. And the young ladies seemed to enjoy it more than the young gentlemen. So I thought, well, hey.
It's a new day. That's a program.
Yeah,
And
just
some more
good stuff.
activities.
Just
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
But again,
Normalcy returning.
You're right. And remember, when we talk about normalcy returning, children interacting with each other, who's first in line? May
Absolutely.
I please go next? Please stand over here. All of those little social cues that children pick up from each other and from adults are things that are part of normalcy, whether it's in a social setting like this or in the classroom. So it's really essential we start to create those opportunities again for our children. Dr. McKay.
All right. So our Engineers Without Borders, which is a program that the guys are involved with, Matt Catania, Austin Felix Broad, Maverick Brendley, and Nazir, they all are involved in this program where they design, then they cut, and then they build, and then they donate. John Bruno is and Mr. Franco are very proud, Mr. Foco, excuse me, are very proud of these guys for their volunteer efforts. That's Brendley there, That's Maverick working on the computer. But as you can see, we have a laser cutter there and a laser cutter on the right and left. They do exact cuts now. For those of you that had design classes when you were in high school and you were using an X-Acto knife and your house always looked like it was tilted and glued, those days are over because of all the work that they have. And they have to measure them and they have to be perfect. So these guys are really something. This is some program because it's not just design in the one classroom, it's also fabrication in the other classroom. This piece is something that whenever we give tours, this is where we end up, just to show them this piece.
And for me, one of the things that is not just important as far as the engineering process goes is that sometimes, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Martin, when engineers start to solve problems, particularly in this case, they're solving problems to help people or to create a solution. That's a super important skill for children to have in creating compassion, creating understanding. So whether you're working without borders in other countries or you're working locally, when engineers typically will start the design process, they have to solve a problem. And when we teach our children to solve problems for humanity or for the community, we start to embed pride in them, compassion, and understanding of the problem. And then, of course, the academic application of the cutting, the precision, et cetera. All right. I'm not doing well with the clicker. There
So
we go.
because this is a CTE program, they have competitions as well through their student government program. And the student program that they're involved in is TSA. TSA had a competition. The competition was virtual but live. So you did it live at your school, but then you competed virtually with other teams. And our optical engineering group, that's Mason Freifelder, Morgan Freifelder, Michael Chang, and Julian Poros, and Joseph Santiago are state champs.
Yeah.
So
Congratulations.
Mr. Bruno and Mr. Foco are
Yes.
so proud of them.
Again, in a very abnormal school year, trying to give
This was
normalized
happening.
schooling experience, something for our students and our faculty to be very proud of.
Yep.
Outstanding.
And second in the state was computer-aided design, which is part of the engineering competition. And Jack Foco, Nick Decker, who are both freshmen, finished second in
That's
the state.
amazing. Yeah. Second place for freshmen. We'll take it.
Okay, so the Junior National Honor Society out of Glen Meadow, they had to do a service project. So it was decided by Miss Amato, who's their advisor, that a good service project in April was to come on a Saturday and to clean the roads up, clean up the trash in the different areas of this road. So that's the Junior National Honor Society of Glen Meadow, and they're cleaning up the trash.
Look how many students came out on a Saturday.
And they all had T-shirts, and they had, from what I hear from Miss Amato, the time of their life.
Isn't that Karen DeVito's house?
No, that is not my house. Thank
Don't
you.
start that,
For all the
Joe.
public.
Don't start
Knowing everybody knows where I live anyway. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. You're very
So
kind.
kudos to them. It's great. The part of normalcy that we need to talk about as well is that these things are still going on. So May 8th, we had the SATs. We kept it. There are other places that didn't. June 5th, we're going to have the SATs again. They'll be socially distanced. We will take care of it, and we'll make sure that it gets done. So it's being done either in Glen Meadow or the high school. So we just wanted to show you some pictures of testing that have happened in the last couple of weeks.
And in the meantime, you can see the beautiful gymnasium, which
Oh, my
is
goodness.
undergoing a significant facelift.
Oh, my goodness.
So we will soon be replacing all of the team banners that were up prior. But as you can see, the walls have been painted. It's crisp. It looks beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Our custodians and have really done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, Kenny Kotzer and Lou Stigler did the painting. That's our guys, and they did a beautiful job. The place looks great. Oh, yep, there's your PSAT and your ASVAB testing. So ASVAB happened in the cafeteria, and of course the PSAT. Just wanted to show people that normalcy, we're doing it. It may look a little different, but here's a star.
So this week I had the opportunity to interview Michael Chang. He is the valedictorian of the class of 2021. So congratulations to Michael. He's also just completed his Eagle Scout project. And you can see him sitting there with his benches. These benches are beautiful and they're really sturdy. We had, Mr. Shane and I were there, obviously he was taping to lift the benches and move them so we could video They're really heavy. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to blow away. And it's really lovely. The benches are actually right by the flagpole in front of the high school. So many students are waiting there for a ride. They're waiting after sports. They're waiting for a parent. So they've been used already. Congratulations to Michael. He did a great job on the Eagle Scout project. And if you haven't had a chance to catch the Superintendent Spotlight podcast yet, he'll be going to Amherst in the fall to study neuroscience.
I know.
So just a little major, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, great interview with the superintendent.
Thanks.
Check it
and
out.
And a lovely young man, polite.
Yeah, and thanks to
smart.
Miss Sabia for sending us
Beautiful
this picture.
pictures.
She did a great job with
She
that.
did.
Okay. Glen Meadows Professional Development Carousel. We were talking about some of the great things that are going on in the different buildings. This was a professional development with the principal of Glen Meadow, in which she had some of her best folks or some of her folks that were interested in teaching teachers. And they had an outrageous Monday meeting.
And what I love about this is that teachers volunteered to turnkey to their colleagues, which is difficult, right? You have to get up and say, let me tell you what I know, or let me tell you what I learned. And then teachers could sign up for the carousel and get into one of those time slots and then rotate through and take a couple of different carousel slots so that they could do a 15-minute session. The thing for me that's really special is that when we talk about normalizing, we have to talk about instruction. We have to talk about the things that matter, the things that are effective. How do we replicate these things and continue to use them for the future? What happened in COVID that we can keep? And what happened that we don't ever want to have to deal with again? And we really should be having these conversations in order to start to drive the district forward.
So thanks to guidance counselors, CST members, and teachers who taught these classes. Each class was 15 minutes, and then the staff would move to the next session. It was more than an hour. Everybody stayed. It was terrific. So congratulations to the administration and also the teachers for doing this. I especially liked Kate Ramirez's YouTubers for Ideas and Inspiration.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned this Pixon EDU comic maker. If you have not seen it,
Yeah.
the middle school kids are like crazy
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Crazy about it. So all these things that people are finding.
Oh, here's some
this
really
is
good
so
news. This is
exciting.
Friday. This is going to be great.
Tomorrow night.
Yep. All right. So the theater students in Glen Meadow were trying to put together a production like they always do. And they decided that the best thing that they could possibly do is write their own story. Now, the author, Jodi Paquette, found out about them and actually talked to the students. Now, this is an author that's created 80 books, Sister's Keeper, et cetera. We all know the books. And she talked to the kids about their project because she's writing something for Broadway that looks something like this.
It's actually called Breathe, and it opens tomorrow night, the same night as our middle school show.
Exactly. And it's just like what the kids are doing, which was Dear 2020. And it's memoirs from middle school where kids are sitting talking about COVID and
their experiences.
what they're living through. And this group has already had a wonderful experience because they had a conversation with the person who was the choreographer for Hamilton. So they've already had the experience of talking to some big folks. And every time the principal talks about this or Miss Sandler, who's running this group, talks about this, they practically levitate off the ground because they're so happy with everything that's going on with the theater program. So that's tomorrow night at Glen Meadow.
And again, the benefit of Zoom, even though we're all Zoomed out, is that when Miss Sandler actually reached out to Jodi Paquette, sent an email and said, I don't know if you're the type of author who checks your emails, but my students are doing, and could you please be a part of a Zoom with us? And when I interviewed the students, they were floored to be speaking with an author. And they said they were so excited to be able to actually ask her questions about the creative process, to share with her their anxieties about performing on stage. Some of them have never been on stage before. So the opportunity to connect with an author, with a choreographer, these are the powerful moments in education that we should embrace and replicate for the future.
And of course, our superintendent is Superintendent Spotlight with the kids, and it's magical.
They're so cute.
Yeah, they
I
are.
had such a good time with them.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
So not only doing this in person, but they're doing a live broadcast of it in a couple of weeks, right?
Right. Well, to tell you how it works, that's a good question. Mr. O'Donnell just asked about a live broadcast and the link. So it is opening tomorrow, but it's a limited audience. It's really for parents. It's limited because of COVID restrictions. However, there's a link that will be attached to the performance that people can download and watch. Oh, look at that. Mr. Shea. You are, what would we do without the magic of Magic Matt Shea? Yes, so it's very similar to how the high school did their performance this year, Little Shop of Horrors. They had live performances that were limited. It was recorded, and then you could buy tickets or buy a link. So if you'd like to watch it from the, privacy or comfort of your home, you can certainly do that. So very similar approach, but they're super excited. That's tomorrow night.
Those kids wrote their own monologue.
They did.
Yes,
They wrote everything.
absolutely.
Tears to your eyes. I mean,
They wrote their own everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a talent. What talent's going up to the high school next year or staying in Glen Meadow as they move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, we couldn't end this without a picture of Denise Clark leading the way. At the Carnival, she was our DJ and she volunteered her time for both days. This woman was a powerhouse and she had the kids dancing, and I just thought this picture was wonderful because she was leading a whole group of kids around. They did all
Like a
sorts of
Pied Piper.
activities,
Yeah.
freezes and limbo and dancing and conga lines and everything else. We should hire her for every activity. But anyway, the reason I put this in here is there's the spirit of Vernon.
Yeah.
Spring forward. Let's come back. Let's do the Denise Clark, if you will, and enjoy life again.
Right. So again, a synopsis of what's happened really from April 12th through now. We still have 25 days of school left, I
Yes.
think, or something like that. I know the little ones tend to count it down, but we're seeing lots of student engagement, lots of vibrant energy in the hallways, which is really, really positive, right?
Yep. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for calling.
I know I have the next item on.
Any questions from the board? No. Okay. Thank you for the presentation.
No problem. The next item on the agenda is district board goals. Although it's under me because it's the district, it's certainly open for the Board of Education to talk about or review perhaps as they see fit the district goals. And they are attachment WS1 in your packets.
So these are the goals that we set back last summer in September for this school year.
Yes.
I don't know what happened to number 6, maybe COVID.
Which one?
Number 6. Create an ad hoc committee to determine the feasibility of alternative school start times.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some items on here that were sidelined by COVID. And some of these we started, if you remember, Ms. Pellet, right, prior to COVID. I'd done a lot of research on the later school start times, had started having conversations with coaches, and then we had the unfortunate COVID situation and things have been sidetracked. The benefit is that it's almost September, so we get to set goals again and decide as a board, what are the priorities of the board and the district as we move into next school year.
Kelly, I think when you asked to discuss this item on the agenda, there were some things that we've had a lot of success with that you wanted to highlight.
We did have a lot of success. We are creating, especially sorry.
District goal number 2,
Yeah.
item 5.
Right.
Your committee's done a lot of work in that area.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of impartial, but the Student Life Committee, I think, has done a tremendous job of supporting an authentic senior school experience year for the class of 2021. We have a couple more surprises in store coming up in the next couple of weeks for them. And I think that, especially with the carnivals, we tried to make that experience for our students the best we could with given COVID. I thank the superintendent for allowing us to do that. It was a very outside of the box type of item that no other district has done. And I really feel that Vernon has put their best foot forward with thinking outside the box to enhance the life of our students while they're in district. And I think that it's in line with the goals, and I do appreciate the superintendent's support on that.
Yeah, a lot of these things are things that we have been doing all year. Making sure that we're making full use of all of the grant opportunities that have been coming from the state and federal government with COVID.
I mean, and then District Goal 3, we are going to get back to our open house program. I will start that in the fall so that the public could come and see what the high school has to offer, and we'll start that up again.
Sure. If there's less concern about masks, et cetera, as we see Department of Health, maybe we can put something together either before the year's out or in the summertime as well.
Yeah. So we'll start that up again. There was a lot of interest in that, and a lot of members of the community are asking, are we going to do that again? So that is definitely something that we're going to start once again. But I really wanted to have the goals here so that our newer members that didn't really set the goals and talk about the goals can take a look at it and see if they agree with the path that we're going, or if they have other ideas, because we are going to reset them as time goes on. But I think that given what we had this year, I think we did a really good job, and I think we really met a lot of the goals, which we didn't know if we were going to be able to attain that. So.
As we go into June and July, we should be talking about and thinking about what goals we have for the next school year. So if board members have areas that they feel that the board and administration should focus on, start to think about that and see, if they fit under existing goals or if we need to add to them for next year.
And Jen, if you wanted to maybe think about who you want on that ad hoc committee, if you want to chair that and then think about who you want on that, I certainly would put a focus on that if you're passionate about that.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, item 3.
Item 3 was superintendent goals, attachment WS2, and then superintendent goals summary attachment WS3. So they kind of go hand in hand. Number 2, it's in actually a similar format to the document you just saw. It says superintendent goals, and it outlines the goals that I was working on for the year, and then what I've provided for the board. And I should have done this in a PowerPoint presentation as opposed to a handout. But WS3 is a goals summary sheet. So what I've done for the Board of Education, so you don't have to go through many documents, is to try to bullet out some of the successes I feel that I've had in attaining the goals. The first one was a singular goal, and it was continue to navigate the Vernon Township School District through the various stages of reopening or closing if necessary, or as directed through the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't need to belabor the point of COVID. I think we've all been through it the year, but there were, many meetings, many podcasts, many, letters to the public, adherence to Department of Health guidelines, meetings with the DOH and the, Sussex County superintendents. There were lots and lots of things that happened through COVID. We also talked about the types of cleaning that we were using for our schools, the types of PPE we were using, how to support our faculty through some difficult challenges. The second one was drive student achievement and academic success across the wide range of needs within our student population to ensure the growth and development of the whole child. There are a couple of items that I would just like to call to your attention. We have met or exceeded all of our English language learner student needs. That was one of the items that we were concerned about. I do have some bulleted points on the Glen Meadow Viking Success Academy, which is an ICR class. And I have some data that's included at the bottom of the second page. Just a couple of points. Students' grades improved from last year to marking period 1, and then again from marking period 1 to marking period 2, with 90% of students passing ELA and math. We did have grades dip in marking period 3, but we're still above marking period 1 passing rates. So we've had success in there, as well as with some goal setting. Behavioral and SEL visits as well are documented for the board to review. Also, some of the other, we worked with the Special Services Committee to outline special services programs, services, and resources. That was shared via a superintendent's report in December. There were also follow-ups to that at subsequent meetings. And when we created various opportunities to engage with virtual learners this year, and of course, they include some of the things that Ms. Mitchell mentioned, as well as some other items. Superintendent goal number 3 was exercise fiscal responsibility in order to optimize the district's limited resources towards safety and student achievement while continuing to pursue additional sources of revenue to fund what's possible. Again, these were all set not knowing what the year was going to bring. So we had reductions in certified staff and aides or paraprofessionals where applicable, and other staff to accommodate the cuts from the state. As difficult as that is, we do still need to meet the budget needs of our district. We had a successful negotiations process, I think, with the VTEA and the VTAA. We've continued to look at a reduction of fixed expenses. We've created revenues through grants in the International Student Program. Thank you to the board for supporting me in that. I hope that we are able to welcome some children in the fall. The only things that we did not get to was the referendum at this referendum, which was on the agenda. Aside from the cost of the architect, if the referendum fails, the district cannot put the referendum out for a vote to the public for 2 years. And we are allocated money in reserve for upcoming projects. And I think we're also planning on an assessment through the state for an energy audit, which should yield projects with a return on investment for the district. The other item that was not addressed, I think, was an assessment of the co-curricular programs. We talked about doing an audit. That item we did not do, in part because I didn't feel we would have accurate information coming from our schools. COVID caused such disruption to our students. Many faculty had meetings online. Some children came, some children didn't. So that would be the one other area that perhaps needs to be looked at again in the future, because I did not complete that part. And then goal number 4 is personal goal: continue to pursue a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Pennsylvania, continue to utilize coursework to inform and inspire necessary changes in the Vernon Township School District. I am excited that my proposal hearing is scheduled for Monday. It means that if I get a green light, which I think I will, I'll be able to ask for IRB approval and start to collect data and write my dissertation over the summer. So there was a lot of work that went into that, but I'm proud that I've shared lots of books and articles with members of the administration. In fact, I'm going to be conducting some book studies next year based on some of the work that I've done at UPenn. And then the rest of the document talks about standards achievement. These are just items that I'm supposed to hit as I'm going through the professional standards for educational leaders. It's PSEL and it's required of the superintendent. And then the last page just talks about some other things that perhaps were not covered in the goals. They were things like a successful search process for a school business administrator, as well as the director of special services, the supervisor of special services. I had some volunteer activities at Heaven Hill Farms with the coalition, Trunk or Trail at Maple Grange. I'm organizing a capstone celebration, which I'm super excited about, for June 15th. And of course, my involvement with Vernon stakeholders. So just kind of a synopsis of some of the items that I've covered in the last year. It feels like a long year, but we were very busy with a lot of items. I don't want to belabor it. Everybody has a document in front of them. If the board has questions, I'm open.
Any
Does anybody,
questions or comments?
yeah, does anybody have any questions on the goals at all? Does any of the committee chairs want to speak to the goals at all?
I just had a question about the goals. We post these online for the community to see.
Well-
And do we have trackers and stuff that the community can also see for themselves how we're progressing throughout the year? I'm new
So-
to this, so
Yeah, no, it's okay. So did you say the goals themselves, like when they were approved, Mr. Smagli, they were posted online, just like anything else, just like board minutes, right, or anything else? As far as progress towards goals, we talk about different things at different times. Actually, in the document in work session 3, I've cited a few times in there, superintendent's report from December or superintendent's report from January. So I will occasionally talk about them at a superintendent's report, sometimes during our committee reports. For example, buildings and grounds might talk about orthophosphate. That might be a district goal or a Board of Ed goal. And if we talk about water treatment, we do report out to the community on a regular basis. But as far as a tracking system online, we don't do that if that's what you're asking. Okay. I don't know if that helps. Did that clarify? Did that answer your question or not really? Did I make it worse?
Yeah, I wanted that. I'm good with that answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
No committee chairs? Want to speak to special services?
Well, sure. Thank you.
Just thought maybe you would want to speak to.
So then I hope all the other committee chairs will be speaking as well. Okay, so for special services, district goal number 2, drive student achievement and academic success across the wide range of needs within our student population to ensure the growth and development of the whole child. Board goals, major activities. Number 4, provide board oversight over the Department of Special Services to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all students. Just so everyone knows, I'm going off the board goals. Special services will review services, programs, and department goals on a regular basis. We have worked on that, and we should be moving back to department goals. Also, the committee should be getting a list of all the programs throughout the whole district. And we will also go back and review services as well. Evaluate resources allocated towards special services and district budget and recommend any needed adjustments for the 2021-2022 school year budget. Somewhat did that on a micro level. C, solicit feedback from the CPAG. That stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Group. We often solicit feedback. We have an open relationship with our CPAG leadership. We can reach out to them. They can reach out to us. We do have a meeting with them coming up soon, and we do ask for their input. For example, most recently with the carnivals, the winter and spring carnivals, they gave us ideas to help students with special needs at these events. So that's one way of many we received their feedback. They were also involved when we were recently hiring the new director of special services. One person from their leadership team was on the committee for hiring. So we often solicit feedback and include them. Evaluate resources allocated towards mental health services in district budget and recommend any needed adjustments for the 2021-2022 school year budget. We did do that a bit. Mental health obviously is an ongoing concern, very much so, especially with the pandemic that has compounded it. We discussed all the different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The only thing which we are not required to by law by any means, but having a therapeutic component would be the one nice thing that would be included. But again, the committee can loop back to that. Going down to district goal number 3, I'm now jumping to the curriculum committee. I recently took over the curriculum committee in January. So this is a relatively new endeavor for myself and my committee. District goal number 3, exercise fiscal responsibility in order to optimize the district's limited resources towards safety and student achievement while continuing to pursue additional sources of revenue to fund what's possible. We shared that with a few other committees. And to optimize the right side, the district footprint and personnel based upon current and anticipated future student population. The curriculum committee has touched on that within conversation. As the chairperson, all of my agendas are very detailed and easy to follow, so we can always go back and look. And then,
That's it for you, right?
is that it? Oh, I feel like there's another one. Oh, you know what? I skipped number 2 by accident. Going back to the number 2 for curriculum, district goal number 2, Board of Ed goal number 1, curriculum, examine courses, electives, and district, looking at emerging trends, budget, enrollment, staffing, curriculum needs, and state federal requirements to determine possible changes to offerings. We definitely did do that relatively recently. And I was not chair to adjust, add, delete courses. So therefore I couldn't report back to that. But the long-term resource needs of the ESL program seems to be on track, and looking at basing the changing enrollment demographics.
Great. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the board goals? Any thoughts? No?
So are any other chairs going to report out? No?
Well, great. Thank you so
Okay.
much for discussing this. It's important.
Okay, item G, recommendations.
Number 1, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipends, salary adjustments, student teaching, mentoring, as listed. The table is at the bottom of page 3 for the board, the top of page 4, and there is one item on the addendum.
Okay, can I have a motion for recommendation G1?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments?
Yes, on one of the stipend adjustments on page 4, I'm pulling it until next week because we have a issue with the starting date. So the person's initials are LV, and it's for Lounsbury Hollow part-time aide. I'm pulling that one until next week.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia.
Yes.
Number 2, it is recommended that the board approve the 2020-2021 Vernon Township Board of Education organizational chart, attachment WS4.
I have a motion for recommendation 2.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Semaglia. Questions or comments? So there was a question from the public about this organizational chart. I just want to point out for the board, though, that this is for this school year. So this organizational chart technically expires in a month. So I don't think that at this meeting we should look into modifying it by any means. We've already approved next year's organizational chart. It was done at a previous meeting. But if that's something that the board is interested in exploring at a later date, we should certainly talk about that at that time. Any other questions or comments?
No, I appreciate that, Justin. I just wanted to point it out. This was at my request because I did want to point out, which has now been corrected, and that's probably why it's on here as an attachment. For the CST supervisors pre-K to 12, it now lists 2. So you're correct. This will be expiring at the end of the school year. So that's actually why this was on the agenda and fixed, and it is now correct.
Thank you.
Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luthner,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation G3.
Number 3, it is recommended that the board approve the creation of the high school esports team stipend for the 2021-2022 school year in the amount of $3,703. This is a year-long stipend encompassing the fall and spring season.
Can we have a motion for recommendation G3?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
Yeah, how did the amount, how is it derived?
We tied it to what we pay the clubs for the year-long clubs.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I just want to say I'm very excited about this.
Me too. Me too.
Us too.
It's a great program.
It is a really great program.
Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item H, Ms. Linsky.
The discussion items are the personnel report that's attached, the enrollment report, and also the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, random drug testing, and school safety reports.
Are there any questions about those reports? Okay, recommendations?
It is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of NJSA 18A:11-12.
Okay, can I have a motion for recommendation 1?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pellet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The second is, it's recommended the board approve the food service addendum renewal for the 21-22 school year. There is a 1% increase. It's tied to CPI. It's 1%, and that equates to $1,133 additional this year. This is I believe, the third year of a 5-year contract. We do an addendum every year. It's highly regulated by the New Jersey Department of Agriculture. Once we approve this, we send in the contract, it's their contract, and they're looking for specific verbiage.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lutner. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation 3.
It is recommended that the board approve the list of work session and public meeting dates from July 2021 through December 2021 for publication and posting as required.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 3?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
And this is at Lounsbury, if you'll know.
Yes.
Yes,
Yay.
going back.
Going back to normal.
Travel further.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 4, it's recommending the first reading of the policy for postnatal accommodations for the policy and for teaching staff, and for support staff.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 4?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
Yes, when will the second reading be?
We can have it on put it on the next agenda.
For the next meeting?
Yes,
Isn't there like a 30-day requirement? This is a little quick, wouldn't it?
I've never heard of a 30-day requirement. I can look into that.
I don't believe there is. I believe the point in having the 2 options for the readings are the opportunity for the board or the public to
The public
recommend
to
changes.
read into
Yeah.
it and comment on it.
Yeah. I think the reason the 30 days started was because boards at one point in time met only 30 days. Some boards function a little bit differently. I don't believe there's a 30-day requirement. There is a 2 reading requirement, of course.
I know.
I don't believe there's 30 days, but we can find out
I'd
for
like to
sure.
make a suggestion on how we handle policy changes for the future, maybe?
Sure.
The first time, I would suggest that we open up or bring forward any changes at a work session. And then have at the public session, have the first reading, and at the next public session, the second reading. So that there's plenty of time for us to read it, digest it, understand it. Just a suggestion. And it has nothing to do with these items right here.
So I'd like some direction from the board. I appreciate the suggestion. Just let us
Maybe we
know
can
how to
discuss
proceed.
it at another time, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, we
Well,
can discuss it now.
yeah.
There's certainly no problem discussing that now. So you're suggesting that we first make the policy a discussion item, and then
At a work session.
and then at a work session, and then the first reading be the following public meeting,
Yeah,
followed by the second reading at the subsequent public meeting.
or at a subsequent meeting.
I think that makes sense.
I think so
What does
too.
everybody else think?
I mean, I didn't get a chance to read it,
I think
think it over.
I was just looking it up real quick and Summit Schools actually has a policy that they've adopted to do the first reading at a public meeting, and the second reading is a month later at the next public meeting. So it gives people enough time to review it after the first reading.
So I would suggest that the second reading for next week would be too soon.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, I'm not, that's all, thank you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Is the board in favor of using that as our practice moving forward?
Yes.
It's fine by me.
I mean, does it make sense operationally for the central office?
It makes sense until we have like 25 policies on for discussion.
But it's at a work session, we can discuss them.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm with you.
So how do you get 25 policies for
What-
discussion at one time?
When there's a policy alert from Strauss,
Trust me.
yeah, so if you remember the last time we saw policies, we saw like a bulk of them.
Yes, I remember.
And that's typically how they happen. So, but I just need direction from the board.
Yeah,
I
I
have
don't
no
think
problem with it
that's-
operationally whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think that concern would be a big hurdle
Yeah.
because at this point, we would be able to discuss all of these policies at this point anyway. So
Sure.
the majority of the policy changes that come out of policy updates are things that don't really encourage much board
Yeah,
discussion.
they're
because
usually regulation
yeah.
changes or law changes.
Right.
so-
And don't they give you like an update of
Yes, they
why
do.
they're putting
Yes.
forth?
Yes.
Maybe you could share that with us?
I thought you received that. My apologies. You should absolutely have that, Joe. So
Thank you.
the reason, this one is an anomaly. There's a report that's due to the state.
I did have it. I got it.
Yeah, but I
Haven't had a
noticed that
chance
we,
to read it.
no, but I noticed that we didn't have, we don't have an updated policy. So before I fill out the report, I want to make you aware that we are supposed to have this policy. So, so just for clarification, in the future, when policies come forward, whether they are individual or they are the bulk of policies with a policy alert, discussion item at a work session, then first reading is the following public meeting and second reading is the following public meeting after that, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to go around the room very quickly. Everybody on board with that? You can just nod your head or say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, everybody good?
Okay,
Works. All right.
thank you.
I do have a question about the policy, though. Just on the second page, it says required to sign in and out of work. Is there a reason for that? And I only ask because as.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you
No,
point out
that's
to where that
okay.
is?
These microphones. I'm looking at the requirement to sign in and out and back into work. before the break to express breast milk. As a nursing mom, returning to work is very stressful. And thinking back to when my twins were little, the place where it was set up for me to do that versus where my classroom was a long ways and in a big building. And I needed every minute that I could to express the milk. So I don't know if there was a reasoning behind it, if that's going to be more stressful for our teachers and staff to have to walk across a building to sign out and then to sign in, and, you know, just really the reasoning behind that, and if we wanted to keep that or get rid of it.
It's a good question. I don't have an answer. This is a policy a standard policy that came from Strauss. I will inquire the purpose for the signing out and signing in. We can certainly modify that practice so that, I mean, I hate to say it, if a faculty member notifies the main office that they're calling out because they need that time, you know, I'm comfortable working with people because I certainly understand that when you are dealing with expressing breast milk, you do need every minute you can possibly have. And if you don't do it, you can be very uncomfortable. So I'll find out what the purpose is for that. I can tell you that, yeah, and I can tell you that our nurses have identified locations, obviously, in every building that qualify under what we have to provide.
I mean, it doesn't have to be physically signing in, it could be an email.
To the office or
Yeah, like I
email,
said,
so there's a
yeah.
timestamp. If there
Right.
needs to be a timestamp of some
Yep.
kind, I totally understand that. But to physically have to go somewhere, just want a little clarification on that.
Okay.
Justin, do we need to adopt a formal policy about the policies?
It's something that we could do if we
I
wanted
think
to.
we should, if we're putting that together as something that we're going to follow as standard operating procedure. I think we should put it in writing and, you know, make it something that goes to our bylaws or whatever it is.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the policy on policies and
I think it's in
bylaws for the
bylaws,
board.
yeah.
Yeah, the policy on policy, and check what the verbiage is in there. And if we need to revise that or add it, we certainly should do that. So because there may be changes to this policy, do we want to vote on that this evening, or do we want to table it?
Table? I think you have to table it.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll have to redo the first reading anyway. So it's
Okay,
really,
so- I have another question, though. I'm sorry. Based on Mr. O'Donnell's comment, do we need to pull bylaws for discussion at our next meeting? How would you like to proceed?
yeah, the June work session, we'll
Yeah.
put that on. the
I mean,
June work
based
session
upon the
agenda.
conversation we had earlier about developing
Yes.
agendas, I'm just trying to stick
Yes.
with the process, right?
Yes,
So,
so on the June work session agenda, I
Okay.
think that's appropriate for a work session. We will have
Bylaws.
that policy as a discussion item,
okay.
which then rolls into Mr. Sweeney's suggestion that we discuss policies at a work session and then vote on them at the subsequent meeting.
Yeah, and then the way our board works, we're listed, all 9 of us are on the policy committee. So therefore, to do this at a work session, it's not like a separate committee. It would make complete sense, Mr. Annunziata, I agree, to do it at a work session because all 9 of us are the policy committee.
Adina, did you want to make a motion to table
Oh, yes, I'd like to make a motion to table
until the next board meeting?
until the next board meeting, yeah.
Could I also
Thanks,
ask
Justin.
something? Can we get this, I
So-
prefer if it was digital, just because if I want to look it up and compare to what other districts have, it's
So-
easy.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It'd just be easier to compare it, because just using software, see where the differences are, instead of trying to highlight differences.
So is that
Just a
request just
preference
for
that-
policies or for for policies?
No, I'm just asking if we could just add that, we can, in the future, just, I don't think it has to be a policy, but it's a preference for me, if you guys could make it a little easier.
Electronic.
But electronic,
To table.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Okay. Now we can discuss the other item.
I mean, why do we have to have a courier bring the packet? Why can't we just have it electronically and just call it a day? And then have the packet at the desk when we come in?
I prefer a hard copy.
Oh, you do?
Well, I'm old school.
You're old school. Okay.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I put out a request and shared it with the full board because during the pandemic, we were receiving it electronically and paper. And so I just thought that was a great practice because sometimes I have the hard copy in front of me in my bag if I'm out. Other times I might be out and I might just have my phone or computer with me and I'll pull it up. So I have to let you all know, I'm very thankful. I requested that if it could still be shared electronically for that option, having both is nice, but I still have them electronically sent to me due to my request. So if anyone would like it electronically, feel free. Mrs. Smith emails it to me, so if you'd like it, just let her know, and I'm sure a few of us will be on the email. And I do know in the past, previous board members have just gone virtual, I'm sorry, electronic, so it's, however, I'm mixing all my tech terms here, have gone completely electronic with their agenda, so if that's how you prefer it, just let Ms. Linsky and Ms. Smith know, and just get included on the email.
Okay. Recommendation 4 was tabled. Item 5.
It is recommended that the board award the replacement project for the high school track and turf field to Field Turf in the amount of $700,517. Funds will be withdrawn from capital reserve. This should say from the 2021-2022 school year. Work will be completed over the summer of 2021. And I just want to say that this is.
So before we do questions or comments, can we just get a motion to?
Yep.
Can we get a motion for recommendation 5?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. All right, Ms. Linsky, the floor is yours.
This is just the award. We're working through the contract piece of it at this point, and we should have it done tomorrow.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Ms. Linsky was instrumental in working with me on the contract and getting some interesting points of the contract changed that weren't necessarily in our favor, so to speak, which they are now. I just want to thank her for working hard on that today and getting that done. And now there's only maybe one thing that on the contract that I don't agree with, so that's a good thing.
I would also like to thank Mr. O'Donnell for his help with it. Did a nice job. Thank you, Morton.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. When I know that we're not voting on the contract, we're just voting on the project, the award of it. But could you send the finished product to the rest of the board since one or two board members has it, we want to make sure that every board member has a chance to see it.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation 6.
It is recommended that the board approve the Walnut Ridge School installation system for orthophosphate water treatment. It's a revision to the original resolution that you passed prior.
Okay. Can we have a motion for recommendation 6?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Luthner, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sweeney. Questions or comments?
What, if you could maybe just go over what was changed?
The additional engineering drawings and documents was added. When they did the first orthophosphate, there was, we went to the county approved it. The county kicked this one up to the NJDEP, and they are requiring the engineering sign-offs.
So there's an additional $3,000 on it then?
Up to, really,
Up
it's
to?
up to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation 7.
It's recommended that the board approve the purchase of Chromebooks from CDWG in the amount of $152,437.60 under the ESC of New Jersey bid number ESC NJ 18/19-03.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 7?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments?
How many Chromebooks are you going to get for this amount?
It's great.
Right, okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
And who will they be for?
Grade 6 and 9.
And some aides also, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
6 and 9, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item I is public participation for items on the agenda or any other business. We'll begin with members of the public who are here in person. Seeing no comments from members of the public here in person, we'll go to the Zoom chat room. If you would like to be admitted, please raise your hand. You'll have 5 minutes. Please state your name and section of town.
It's me again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was initially gonna give you today part 2 of my voicing of displeasure regarding the taxes last month, but I'm gonna postpone it with the 5-minute stuff. I have to break my speeches up into parts due to the fact that there seems to have been a question regarding the robotics club on the Board of Ed. So I would like to give you guys an update. When my time's up, let me know, or you can ask questions afterwards, which you have done with some other people. For those of you who don't know, my name is Martin Piringer. I've been a volunteer for robotics. My 11th year ends now, my 12th year starts next year. So I've been involved with this for a long time, and I spent a ton of time on it. The problem robotics had, and that was discussed, was that robotics takes a lot of time. There are some changes that Dr. McKay and the former members of the robotics team and one teacher is staying on discussed, but none of those changes and ideas are developed yet. They cannot be implemented until the 22-23 school year, the earliest. So we needed to bridge that. I made a research once a couple of years ago, and I took the stipends that the teachers get and the time they spent, and made a simple division on that. And the result was that the teachers for robotics get paid $4.20 an hour. Okay, so I'm not asking you for more money. I know you don't have it. The problem with this is teachers can only do that for so long. So after the meeting with Dr. McKay, I immediately had an emergency meeting that was called by the students, by my real bosses. I call them the bosses because they run the club. Yeah. What is happening? Does robotics still exist within the Vernon Township High School? Right now, robotics is suspended. Every year around this time, robotics is suspended simply due to the fact it's AP test time. Most of our students take AP test, and we're not doing robotics during AP season, okay? So it will be suspended until the beginning of June when AP season is over. So we had the emergency meeting, and robotics people, we have to find new teachers. We have to find more teachers. And we have to be sensitive that we cannot have the teachers work for $4.20 an hour. So kids formed an ad hoc committee to decide and find a way. The problem was titled, Doing Robotics Right While Minimizing Teacher Involvement. Okay, so what we came up with, we had 0 teacher involvement for the first 3 months of the school year because, as you know, the teachers were doing triple work. There was no time for after-school activity yet. The kids and me, we achieved a lot. I can bring stuff by. You might see if you're successful. We're trying for $500 to build a community outreach robot that's about 60% done, and some technical difficulties have to be resolved. If you resolve them, we might have it driving around in the square here for you. And things like this. We built a new gearbox, we built a wheel. The way our procedure worked, we did our kite work online. I 3D printed the stuff. We lost some kids with 3D printers simply because of the fact they graduated in the 2020 year. We now have a student who has a 3D printer on her own again. So there will also be some 3D printing happening at the student's home. And so we had the kids decided to do robotics hybrid, to approach teachers, and we found a second teacher in the meantime that we approached this way. I just got the call from a student on our Discord platform. We got Miss Foco. She's gonna dedicate a few hours every day after school to robotics. And I haven't talked to Ms. Foco yet. I've planned on talking to her tomorrow. So the plan how robotics will work is we're going to see for how many hours we get a teacher. We will run robotics hybrid because robotics takes the time. There's no way you can do build a decent robot and train all the kids and design all the stuff without putting the time in. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peringer.
Okay, anybody has any questions?
Martin, my question is, we can meet tomorrow again to discuss some of the ideas that you're representing tonight. And we can again look at the stipend chart and also talk to the teacher that you just mentioned. And we'll see where we head, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Peringer, I just want to thank you for your volunteering with our
Yes.
students for the last 11 going on 12 years. I know it means a lot to them.
And it's a great program.
It is. It is.
Ms. Linsky?
Justin, we have an addendum.
Oh, you're right. Thank you again, Mr. Peringer.
You're welcome. And I click mute. Okay.
You are correct. Was there anything else for public participation? Any other hands, Mr. Shea? Okay, seeing that, we'll close it to the public. We do have two recommendations on the agenda that we need to go to. Recommendation H8.
It is recommended that the board approve accepting funding in the amount of $166,160 from the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act. The funds will be applied towards increased security throughout the district. Local monies are available if the estimates exceed the allocation.
Can we have a motion for recommendation H8?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Can you speak to the last sentence, local monies are available if estimates exceed the allocation?
This was approved in 2000. It's very slow moving because these funds the state of New Jersey is going out for a bond for these funds. And they said, okay, like you've been sitting waiting
held up
for
for
this
2
to come
years.
through. And finally, we got some movement and they wanted this to be approved. But the resolution needed to include the local monies are available if the estimates exceed the allocation. So in other words, if the vendors come in higher, we're saying we have the money. So
So we have to have that word.
you have to have it. That's why it's being approved again.
We filed this again in November, and we've been waiting, we're still waiting, but it's Alyssa's law. You know, the idea of having an emergency button or something in a classroom that indicates what's going on.
Okay.
And there's other pieces to it. As a matter of fact, there's a water piece grant, part of the grant that we filed, but the state's even further behind on that one.
Yeah, they apparently have to bundle all of our grant applications and have it approved through the legislature, which is just a complete, change from anything that's ever been done before. But because of the bonding, they actually have to have it approved through the legislature. So even though we're at this point, we're like, great, we're moving along, we're not. It's just now we're going to wait again. And this started back in 2000.
Although in-
2000?
In 2020, I'm sorry.
I will say, in defense of the state this time, one of the things that was actually promising was the state put the bond out and funded something, as opposed to having an unfunded mandate where they told us that we had to do something, and we had to pay for it. So it's just taken a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation H9.
Okay. It is recommended that the board approve the submission of the application for the Nita M. Lowry 21st Century Community Learning Centers competitive grant.
Can we have a motion for recommendation H9?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Can you
Thank
speak
you.
to
This one's
grant?
going in today. I want to thank Mr. Gagliostro for his work on this, Ms. Homestead for her work on this. This one is a educational center, which we would partner with. We're going to partner with the farm at Glenwood. We think it's a really interesting program where the students would be talking about things like agriculture and farm to table, et cetera, but it would be an after-school program. And we're hoping for the best on this grant. But again, thanks to those two folks for all of their work as we submit this today.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semiglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luthner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Item J is open board member forum.
I just want to send a thank you out to Mr. Foley. This morning, the boys golf held a tournament that I heard went really well. I got some really good feedback that Mr. Foley was extremely helpful, especially to the media that was there. So hopefully some of our parents had an opportunity to listen. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Foley for his work on that.
That was very nice. Thank you.
Can you guess where I got my information from?
The man.
To the Meadows, yeah.
Very good.
As far as action items after this meeting that, for the administration, the board tabled the policy that was on the agenda this evening because there may be some revisions to that after discussion. Any other action items from the board or direction to the administration? Okay. If there's nothing else, then,
I have a
yeah, go ahead.
Although I'm not sure if somebody else was supposed to bring this up besides me, so I apologize if I'm out of turn. I informed the board leadership that I was going to reach out to Mr. Chili, former board member, regarding some training. Is that something that you'd like to discuss at the next board meeting or this board meeting?
Yeah, let's put that as a discussion item
Okay,
for future.
okay. All right, thank you. So discussion item for June, I'm sorry, for May
Sure.
20th?
Yes, we'll put it as a discussion item on that
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 3, it's recommended that the board enter second closed session for purposes of discussing personnel and student matters. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Chili. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the board is in closed.